Hi, my name is Eric Ryden, certified sommelier and owner of the Grand Triage on the Upper East Side. Today we're going to be talking about Sauvignon Blanc, perhaps the world's most boring grape, or maybe that distinction actually belongs to Pinot Grigio. Hashtag kidding, not kidding. Either way, Sauvignon Blanc is a grape that I feel like gets so overdone or even bastardized that it's really difficult to find an inspirational or kind of satisfying one out and about in the world. But this one we're actually pretty big fans of. Sauvignon Blanc is, I think, epitomized in both quality and popularity by a region in France called Sancerre. If you've ever had Sancerre, since you're only allowed to grow one white grape, every time you have Sancerre, it's always Sauvignon Blanc. So despite the fact that this one is actually from New Zealand, I think it actually captures that Sancerre-like quality really well. But let's go ahead and taste it. All right, so another screw cap, a bit of a theme going on here since obviously I can't open wines with corks in them. Whew. All right, so doesn't smell good. I feel like our bottle is off. This is gonna be an outtake. Almost like this reductive smell to it. It's really acidic, which is what you'd expect from Sauvignon Blanc, but man, the nose is like it's a little bizarre. We'll come back to it in a minute, but for those of us playing at home, what I want you to really take another sip of this, and I want you to pay particularly close attention to what's happening in the very back of your mouth. Right here, you're gonna feel this like pinching up or like tensing up back here. That sensation, that biting back here is actually the acidity of the wine that's forcing your salivary glands to involuntarily activate and kind of pinch or tense up back there. If that's too extreme, maybe you don't feel that, then maybe right after you swallow, you might find yourself salivating a little bit more. So we just talked about these reductive notes. Usually it's mostly just confined to the smell, and it doesn't actually mean that anything's wrong with the wine. Usually it's just an interaction with the wine, oxygen, and sulfur compounds that create this smell that's almost more like rotten eggs or struck matches or like sulfur or something like that. And so the great news about wines that are maybe exhibiting some reductive notes is that usually that will actually blow off. So if you swirl it around like this or just give it some time outside of the bottle, those reductive notes will usually dissipate. And even in the brief amount of time here, we've already started to smell and see those kind of disappear. So nothing wrong with the wine. It's already starting to get a little bit more true to itself, a little bit more in this like citrus backbone, a lot of almost even like lemon, lime, lemongrass, kind of in that world. I want you guys to take one more sip of this wine, but this time I want you to get a nice big sip and swish it around in your mouth as though it were mouthwash. Get it over your tongue, under your tongue, on the sides of your mouth, absolutely everywhere. Swish it around for 30, 45 seconds or so. And you'll notice that you almost get this like buzzing, tingling sensation, almost like mouthwash. And what's really crazy about that is what you're encountering is something that we call minerality. Minerality, where really when you kind of look at the core of that, it's minerals, right? And it refers to the really mineral-rich soils where these grapes are grown. And in both Sancerre and Hawke's Bay in New Zealand, where this wine is from, you have these ancient seabeds that are made primarily out of limestone. And kind of reminds me of the tomatoes that we grow in our small little hashtag urban garden. We've got these feral cats that love to just shit in our little plant beds. And in order to get rid of these cats, we bought something called Scram for cats. And Scram is made of the weirdest shit. I've actually got to pull up the ingredient list for you guys here. It's 12.5% dried coyote blood, 0.5% of garlic oil, 0.5% of cedar oil, citronella oil, rosemary oil, and peppermint oil. So all of these things, when we actually started to put it in our plant beds to ward off these cats, which didn't work, by the way, because urban cats are, apparently they're not afraid of coyote blood. Go figure. But anyway, when we actually put this into our plant beds, it altered the actual content of our soil and altered the flavor of our tomatoes. And they started to really develop this almost spicy flavor, which maybe a spicy tomato sounds great, but then when you actually consider that the largest contributing factor to the fact that they're spicy is coyote blood, maybe you don't want to eat them anymore. So this particular Sauvignon Blanc, what makes it a little less boring than some of the other Sauvignon Blancs is this beautiful tandem between the acidity and the minerality. Usually you find those two things together anyway, but there's actually no correlation between the two. Acidity is mostly coming from climate as well as innate features of that grape. So Sauvignon Blanc is always a high acid grape, but if you actually find it in a colder climate, it usually exacerbates that quality. Meanwhile, minerality comes from, obviously, coyote blood. Kidding! It's purely to do with the soil types that we have. And those two features here make this a really, really tasty meatball, spicy meatball. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But anyway, what did you guys think? We want to know from you all. Is this the first Sauvignon Blanc that maybe you've had from Hawke's Bay? Since the majority are coming out of Marlborough, maybe a little unusual to find one from this little region called Hawke's Bay. Anyway, let us know what you think, and then join us on Friday when we taste this spicy meatball from France. See you guys then. Cheers, stay safe, and stay home.